instead, I basically treated her like she was doing it to me, right? And it's not like she had a choice. It's not like she chose to have postpartum, but I was so immature, right? I was so crippled internally as a man. I looked like one on the outside, but I wasn't really. And that just led to a whole heap of problems. And, we struggled for a long time, like almost a decade. We were on the brink of divorce numerous times. We were separated. We got out of the Army because we thought it would save us. And then now I lost the thing that made me feel like a man. And I mean, we just went on this downward spiral for a long time. And it was these principles and some other things that I'm sure we're about to talk about that got me back to where I needed to be to actually start healing myself and our marriage and our family. And that's kind of the key point here that men need to understand. We initiate and women respond. So it is unfair to be like, well, my wife has this problem, she should fix that, then I'll be more of a leader for my family. Wow, how masculine of you, right? Yeah. My wife came in and was like, why is this not put away? Put it away. Kind of said it in that tone to me. And I just calmly went in the kitchen and said, hey, honey, I'm your husband. Can you just ask me to put it away? And her reaction was like way over the top and like really aggressive. And it started getting close to like fight mode, and she kind of stormed off. But I remembered what time of the month it was. I'm like, you know what? Her emotions are kind of hijacking her right now. So I calmly went back up there and said, hey, honey, I'm trying to force a resolution here or anything like that. Dinner's ready. I'm happy to dish you up. And I also, remembered that it's this time and you're probably just feeling a lot right now, And she was like, I need a hug. Wife.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads Podcast, where being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. I'm your host, Queon. I go by Q. And I'm joined by a very special guest. And I will say that this guest is special, a little bit more special than my other ones because he was in the Army. So, I'm sorry to my previous guests, but if you weren't in the military or even in the Army, especially in the Army like me, you're special in your own way. But thus who have been, how do we, what is the saying from Bane in Batman? He goes, gosh, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, you just adopted the darkness. I was raised in the darkness.
Exactly.
Yes. The crushing weight of the Army. Yes.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And this is not by any means just like a hit on the Army, but it is one of those things where you have a shared experience, whether you were in the same duty location or not, but you have a shared experience of being like, no, I know exactly what that feels like, or I've experienced that where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I was, yes, 100%. So, and then obviously real quick, I'm going to elephant in the room. As y'all can tell, I am not in my normal office. Okay. Baby's coming here any day now in my master bedroom. So if you see my master bedroom, forget it. Forget what it looks like. Don't ever want to consider what it looks like ever again. Okay. That being said, we're going to dive right into it. So I have my guest here, George. Like I said, he was in the Army, active duty for several years, and then got out active duty, and then went to the National Guard doing National Guard things, which is awesome and cool within itself. But now he's on the outside, he's doing the coaching thing, which I love meeting other people who have aspirations to do being coaching or who are doing coaching, because when you get an individual, especially an individual who was an officer in the military or is an officer in the military, their coaching experience is different. He'll understand when I say this. NCOs, when we tend to mentor, it can be a little rough around the edges. You know what I mean? We can, it's almost a tough love type of thing, right? When officers
pain and repetition,
right? You know what I mean? It's when officers do it, there's a little more, it's a better, it comes off there, I'll put it this way. I'm trying to be nice, I promise, but it's a little bit more political and it sounds good in the time. But then in the end, you're like, oh, that was actually a bad thing when he said that. And you're like, yeah, you were, but it made you feel better and look where you are now. You know what I mean? So, anyway, I digress. Before we get into it, George, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, man. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to this. Always great to speak with a fellow Army brother and link
Absolutely.
up on that. Those shared experiences, like you said, that's a special bond. But yeah, my name is George Hayworth. First and foremost, I'm a husband and father. Those are my most important jobs, and they always will be. But outside of that, I am the founder and CEO of Elite Sentinel Coaching, where we forge leaders so they can build their legacies. As you alluded to, I do draw on a lot of my experience from the Army there to teach men valuable things, but you might be surprised, a little bit more pain and suffering that we do here, and we'll probably get into that. I'm not here to just give you a hug. I'm here to kind of poke you in the chest and teach you what you need to be, so you can move on and move out. But outside of that, I also am involved in a lot of other things. I host the Present Fathers podcast with my co-host that we founded a couple years ago. So we're very aligned in mission there, trying to inspire dads to be better men for their families. And then I also have the privilege of working with Precision Components, founded by Nick Lavery, in multiple capacities, where I teach, I coach in his platform called The Forge. One of the members of the speaking team, things like that. So got a lot of things going on, but I'm sure we're going to dive into a wide range of topics tonight, and that's a little bit about who I am.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I want to get in one of the things I want to get into, and I think is because I just had this conversation on Sunday with my co-host for the Bible study, and we were talking about masculinity and what it was to be a man, and
Yeah.
and we went to and we how we explained it is we went through the what the Bible tells us describes as what being a man is and what that looks like, and that's very important, and I think that's how every man should draw from, or where every man should draw from. However, not every man is spiritual or religious or seeks God in that way. So, but for you, how would you define masculinity? Because I think one of the I'll say issues, truthfully, with men is we all define masculinity to be something a little bit different, and versus kind of having a foundational a definition to draw from. So, but how would you define masculinity for men out there?
Yeah. So the highest level way to describe it is I believe masculinity exists with four pillars, and I call them the four pillars of authentic manhood. So, in the world we live in, before I define them, the world we live in is very polarized in two directions. You either have to be Andrew Tate, alpha bro, giga Chad, get money,
Oh yeah.
F women, right? Or it's like this total opposite end of it where it's like, tell me how you feel and all this kind of thing, right? There's no real picture of what man should be in the middle, and that's really where we should be: the right thing at the right time in the right place. And so these four pillars are really the blueprint. It's the foundation of what makes a great man. And so it's king, warrior, mentor, and friend. And the reason it's broken down in that way is real masculinity is leveraging the strengths that we have as men in the right scenarios, right? So if I walk around only as the warrior everywhere I go, well, that's not leadership. That's called tyranny, right? I'm a brute lording over others, not leading them. So very quickly, to just define each one, king is leadership, right? Men are built to lead. At a minimum, you have to lead yourself first. No one wants to follow someone who says, do as I say, not as I do. You need to lead by example. But we're
Yes.
also designed to kind of carry that burden, to take the responsibility of things, the ownership of it, and actually make better outcomes for other. And here's really the key point: is it's for the sake of others. Leadership is a service. It's a gift to others. It's not self-glorification. The next one is the warrior pillar. This is not just physical fitness. That's highly important, of course. You should be capable of physically defending the innocent. But today, where are the threats? Most of them are not physical. It's on the internet. It's on TV. It's what your kids are being exposed to. It's the pornography they're putting in public schools, right? Where are all the men standing up saying, hey, none of this? We don't approve of that. Most of them are silent because you're afraid of getting canceled or having people call you names. So the warrior mindset needs to exist in men, period, because we are supposed to be the protectors, the defenders of the innocent. And that's when we're at our best. When you rise to defend someone who's blameless or innocent, who can't defend themselves, that's kind of the definition of masculinity, right? Then the mentor pillar is we should train, right? We should instruct and coach and mentor and raise the next generation, pay it forward, the things that we have gained that we can help others with. Again, this is out of love for others. It's a desire to train and see them reach their full potential. And then the last one is the most important. And this is the one that most men don't understand. It's things like empathy, compassion, love, understanding, patience. When you have all these other traits, the first three, those are kind of like the foundational things that makes a man. And this last pillar is a catalyst that just propels everything you do that much more, right? So even in the military, I believe I'm a way better commander now because I have empathy for my soldiers. I have compassion for them far more than I did when I was active duty and I was kind of the brute, right? I was all authority and all responsibility and no compassion. And this fourth pillar is really critical too, because in your relationships with your wife, with your children, with your friends, they don't need the warrior. The threats need the warrior. Your family needs the lover, the friend, right? And so when you can balance these four pillars, you are now a real man. And most men today have been given a false image of what it means to be a man. They've been led astray. And so at most they have two or three. They don't have the full picture of those pillars. And so that was a hard to swallow pill for myself. Years ago, I was not living with all four of these pillars. And I was kind of just a tyrant walking around flexing my, anger and stuff over people. And no one wants to be around that, right? Your family deserves better. So that's where I start with men, is teaching them that understanding, because it's you have to have the knowledge first before you can even start applying it.
I agree, man. I love, truthfully, what I love is you've broken it down in a manner in which is simplistic and it's easy. It's an easy pill to swallow when you hear it. Obviously, put it into practice. It takes time. It takes
Right.
That moment of reflection, if you will, in the mirror to say, hey, where am I really at right now? And okay, I know where I'm at now. How do I improve and how do I encompass all of four of these? But I imagine even for yourself, though, when you first started this, you didn't have all of those, or did you?
You mean before I started Elite Sentinel?
Yes, before you started Elite Sentinel and got to the point, because obviously there's something that led you to starting Elite Sentinel, getting to the point and understanding, okay, this is what men are. So was it something, were these four pillars that you've always had, or was one lacking than the other? What was that for you?
No. So as I kind of mentioned, and maybe I didn't make it very clear, I was not living all four pillars. I was the king and the warrior, and that was it. Right. I had no love. I had no, I was not the man my family needed. And so, really, Elite Sentinel exists because I was the first client. I was the first one to learn all these things the hard way. Yeah. And just to give a little background there, at very, very, high level wave tops. But I had a lot of emotional manipulation as a child. I was very emotionally kind of crippled, very codependent, walked on eggshells. That carried forward, into adulthood. And the Army allowed me to mask a lot of that, right? Because a lot of that aggression, a lot of that kind of authoritative presence, that's great as an officer. That's great as a platoon leader or a team leader, whatever type of structure you're in. We thrive on that. It's celebrated. Well, that's great in the Army. It's not great everywhere else. And so I basically just became this one trick pony where I just treated everything like it was the Army. And that's not a great way to have a marriage. But then a lot of my just internal narrative also was from that childhood kind of struggle of, I was wearing masks everywhere I went because I didn't actually love me. I didn't really respect me. I was projecting this image of what I thought I needed to be. It wasn't actually true. And I didn't believe it for me. And so I was terrified of being found out, right? Oh, if they really see the real George, they won't love him or respect him. Well, and then just couple that with some life events and everything. When my wife gave birth to our daughter, it was really scary. She almost died. I mean, it was really intense. We were on active duty. Back then, you got like 17 days of paternity leave, and it was kind of like, whoa, we're not doing well here. Things got really tough really quickly. She had severe postpartum. And again, with all of my insecurities and everything, I responded in the worst possible way, right? My wife needed her protector, her provider, to be understanding and empathetic for her during this time. And instead, I basically treated her like she was doing it to me, right? And it's not like she had a choice. It's not like she chose to have postpartum, but I was so immature, right? I was so crippled internally as a man. I looked like one on the outside, but I wasn't really. And that just led to a whole heap of problems. And, we struggled for a long time, like almost a decade. We were on the brink of divorce numerous times. We were separated. We got out of the Army because we thought it would save us. And then now I lost the thing that made me feel like a man. And I mean, we just went on this downward spiral for a long time. And it was these principles and some other things that I'm sure we're about to talk about that got me back to where I needed to be to actually start healing myself and our marriage and our family. And that's kind of the key point here that men need to understand. We initiate and women respond. So it is unfair to be like, well, my wife has this problem, she should fix that, then I'll be more of a leader for my family. Wow, how masculine of you, right?
Yeah.
If you just start leading better, you start growing yourself, improving your capability to lead with love and patience and understanding, she has no choice but to grow with you. She has no choice but to respond to this more masculine presence that actually leads instead of yelling and ordering, right? And that I finally figured it out. Slow learner. Figured it out after almost a decade. And now where we're at, right? As I live these things and really embrace them, it transformed our marriage, and God played a huge role in that too. But our marriage is something I never thought we'd have. I didn't think we'd be at the state we're in now, right? And it just keeps getting better, and it's because of this daily consistency in these 4 pillars. So hopefully that answers your question fully. But I was not the right guy. I was not a good guy. If you met me a couple of years ago, you probably been like, I don't know, this guy's got some work to do, right? So
Yeah.
And that's the point. That's what I hope to inspire men with, is you can make the shift quickly. All right. Because I had been unfaithful to my wife. We had some massive scars that needed some real healing in our marriage. I mean, when I say we were on the brink of divorce, I mean, we're as close as you could cut it, and there are many men who feel like they've made one mistake or a couple mistakes and there's no coming back from it. I assure you that when you start stepping up and embracing some of these principles, and you surround yourself with other men who help you to be more consistent with them, your wife will respond positively. At some point, it will shift, and everything just takes off to the races from that point. So a lot to unpack there, but that's why we do what we do. Is I'm not special. I'm not like some elite person or whatever. I'm just a regular guy, a regular Army officer. I failed Ranger school, right? So I'm not that special, and I've turned it around from these basic principles. It's hard work, but anyone can do it if you're willing to. So,
well, I think that's awesome, because when we start something, excuse me, when we start something, and then you like you said, you were the first client, right? You start to realize, again, that reflection really happens, and it really, when you really want to change, right? That's the biggest thing. When you really want to change, because you see the impact that you're having, whether it's a negative one or a positive one, but you see the impact you're having on your family, you see the impact you're having on your friends, your community, those around you, and especially when it's a negative impact, that's when you're like, I don't like the person that I am, and the people around me don't like the person I am. So I need to fix that. But it's easier said than done, just by saying, I need to fix that. Oh, that means I'm not going to, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to go to the gym more. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, and it's like, okay, hold on. There needs to be an actual game plan, not just little things that you're saying you're going to do to improve, hoping that those will solve all your problems. In reality, those won't, those little things will help the bigger things, but ultimately they won't solve the bigger problem, right? They're fixing symptoms, I like to call them. You're only fixing symptoms. You're not actually fixing the disease, if you will, that is going on in this metaphorical situation here.
Yeah. That's exactly it, man. And that's where that's like his first response. Oh, I'll go work out more, or I'll go make more money, or anything. It's a Band-Aid. Because deep down, you're not changing you from the inside out, right? And that's why you also see numerous guys, they'll do things like 75 hard, or they'll stop drinking for a while or whatever, right? And then as soon as they hit that like finish line, they immediately regress right back to where they started. Yeah. They put all the weight back on. They haven't changed them from the inside out. And that's where we start with men, is with these 4 pillars. We spend 2 weeks on just these pillars and everything, kind of the sub training that goes into each pillar. Because that is changing you from the inside out first. And then for the next 3 weeks, we do the same thing. It's all focused on you from the inside out. And then whatever else you start putting your mind to, you're going to actually succeed, and it will stick, because it's not this act. You're not trying to fool yourself and others. You've actually become this new thing that's better and stronger and more capable. And there's no way around that. If you just think that you're going to willpower yourself to better outcomes just by yourself, you are setting yourself up for disaster. That was my mistake. I just thought I could just willpower my way. I'm this capable guy. I can do all this stuff. I'll just lock in a little harder, right? I'll just white knuckle it a little bit more. And I mean, my life became a disaster. It was completely unbearable. so stressed out, just, just, I never want to be back in that place again. And what I found was no one's that good. The best people that I get to work with today, some incredible human beings, they're all surrounded by other incredible human beings, right? So none of us are that good. It's just that our circle forces us to be better, right? Our environment continues to propel us forward. And if you're listening to this and like, man, I'm so cut off, you're probably feeling salty. You're probably stressed, angry, lonely, tired, and yearning for more. And that's why, because the secret that the world doesn't tell you is that men are designed for connection. You're designed for connection with each other, with other men, brotherhood. You're designed for deep connection with your wife, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally, and with your children and with your friends. And this is the other thing too. When I said men initiate and women respond, it's not just physically. It's also spiritually. You think your wife is having a hard day or whatever, it's your job to cover the ground and check in with her. Hey, honey, are you stressed or anxious right now? What happened? Tell me more about it. Help me understand. But if you're so cut off that you're just trying to white knuckle life, you will fail. You're going to go down a very dark path. And this is why the stats on mental health for men are so disastrous, because we're all isolated. We're all cut off, and we're anxious and stressed and depressed and feel like there's no way out. And men commit suicide 3 to 4 times more than women. So this isn't hyperbole. This isn't George being alarmist. You have to start connecting with other people, or nothing you do is going to matter. It will never be enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. How did you learn to be empathetic? Because in the military, especially, we have a lot of sympathy, but we don't have empathy. And again, I'll kind of point out the differences here when it comes to enlisted versus officer, or comparing enlisted versus officer, is as an enlisted member, empathy is not a thing in which I have time for, versus where I can be be sympathetic. Hey man, I'm really sorry to hear that you lost your dog. However, this hole isn't going to dig itself. You know what I mean? And so like your sympathy, but that empathy comes into play when you can be like, gosh dang man, you need to take a moment, man. That's a big deal. That's to lose a dog in this example, and take a moment. Let's help you out. Take a moment. Almost take a knee, drink water type thing, and then we'll come right back at it. And we'll continue what we're doing. But I think one of the things that officers have always been good at, especially those who are commanders or who have been commanders, they're good with empathy. So where was this a learned empathy, or was this an empathy that you thought you always had and you were just always capable of?
No, people who know me well would not describe George as an empathetic person. That is not a natural gifting that I have. I have a lot of the king and warrior type giftings very well, right?
Yeah.
Very authoritative, very, aggressive, driven, all that kind of stuff. Empathy is a learned skill. And so that, I want to encourage the men listening to this. You can learn these skills, right? It's not like, oh, I'm a man, I can't do those. No, you can absolutely learn it. You're all going to have different kind of natural traits and skills and things that you were born with, right? You're not all going to look like me, but having, this understanding of I can train this up is true. Because ask me how I know. All the men who come through our program, they build stronger relationships now. I think this is honestly an American problem. We are really bad at empathy because we're really bad at wanting to have to wrestle with painful emotions. Ooh, that sounds icky. Well, sorry for you, man, but leave that over there. Don't bring that over here. This is not just men. Like even women struggle with this in our country today. I think we're crippled emotionally. We think that we always have to solve something. And so like if you got a friend, okay, you're an NCO, let's say there's another NCO struggling with something, they may not need anything other than, hey man, do you just want me to sit with you for a little bit? Yeah, dude, thanks. Yeah. Like that's empathy, right? So it was a learned skill for me of where I need to remember that it's not about me in that moment, or maybe their emotion has nothing to do with me, and kind of distancing myself from that and kind of not letting my own fears or, my childhood stuff kind of come to the surface and just recognize like, hey, they're having a moment, they're having a day, whatever. Let me just check in on how they're feeling so I'm not misreading the situation. And so like, to start, when you're not really good at just reading it, you can literally just ask like, hey, can you help me understand what's going on right now? Right? Help me understand, especially for the guys with your wives. Yeah. This is probably the best sentence you're going to learn is, Can you help me understand? And then just listen, like peel the onion back. But man to man, this works too, right? It's not just like for your wife. And this is why when I said like I'm a better commander now, is it's not just empathy. It's all of kind of those kind of soft emotions of compassion and slowing down and patience and understanding. But like, let's say there's a punitive situation. Before just leaping to a decision because I'm angry about it, I'm going to calm down. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, get words from everyone who saw the event or whatever, right? Just really get the story and really figure out what's going on, and taking a lot of time distancing my emotions out of it before making a decision. So empathy is kind of that glue that sticks people together. It's what creates the connection, even when you have to discipline, right? When you're with your children, you can still be empathetic to how they're feeling and still discipline them for the wrongdoing they did or whatever, right? There can be both. They're not in conflict if you handle it correctly. And so where men go wrong with this most of the time is they think that stoicism means having zero emotion. They think stoicism means detaching completely. And that's not true, because you're a human being. Emotions exist. They are a part of you. They're never going to go away. You're never going to just detach from them completely. Stoicism is feeling whatever you feel, good or bad, recognizing it, and then instead of reacting to the situation, it's responding to the situation. So, like, let's say you're coming at me and you seem like really pissed off. Well, instead of me getting super defensive, I'm going to like, whoop, I feel it. I feel it in me. Ooh, prepare for battle. But I'm going to like slow down. I'm going to ask you a question. Like, hey, man, you seem really angry right now. Has something happened, or did I do something? Can you help me understand? We're immediately now going to get to a better resolution a lot faster than yelling at each other. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I think men can use empathy kind of brother to brother or in the workplace a lot better. But then your family deserves a lot more. They deserve that kind of constant checking in, not from like a codependent way where you're like, oh, I'm worried about what they're feeling, but it's more like, hey, I care about you. How you doing, kiddo? Well, you seem sad right now. Are you sad? It's okay if you are. Like that kind of stuff, right? That's training your child. That's that's coaching and discipling them, right? And it demonstrates you are putting yourself in their shoes. So hopefully that described it pretty well. It's a learned skill for me for sure. It is not a natural thing. Like George, if my wife heard you ask that, she'd laugh hysterically at me. Oh, were you born with empathy? No, that was not something George had very well. I've just been able to learn it, and I've seen the results it pays. Right, the little bit of investment it took to kind of learn this skill, the way it has transformed all of the relationships in my life. It's just exponential, right? So now it's a no-brainer. Like I'm going to put the extra energy into continuing to be better at it, because it's just made my life better. It makes everyone else's life around me better. It is truly a superpower when you build it up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I I have my biggest thing or one of my biggest things is being betrayed by people that I trusted, and I'm there's a reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm kind of I'll bring it full circle, I promise. But I've met a lot of good people. I've met a lot of great people in the military, and built a lot of strong bonds. A lot of people that I could call on today, and we haven't spoken in years, but we could pick up a conversation like it was like we just stopped talking to each other yesterday, But there are on the other side of that coin, there are other people who our relationship has just dwindled, and it was because of it's this competition. I am competing with you, you're competing with me, and we're just gonna compete, and it gets to this point where we just hate each other. You know what I mean? And I bring this up because this happens in whether this is at work in the military or whether this is with your spouse, right? This relationship you've built, and especially if you've been with your wife for some time, man. Because I've been with my wife since 2000, was it 11? Oh, it's 2011. There we go. So we have been together since 2011. However, we have been married since 2014. Okay. And we were high school sweethearts. And for those who know, who've been following Mediocre Dads Podcast, I met my wife when I was in 6th grade and she was in 5th grade. So we've known each other for a very long time, very familiar, whole shebang, whole thing. Right. So we've been together for a very, very long time. But, there were times when I first joined, especially when I first joined the military, where I was growing, but I didn't feel like she was. And it got to a point where I had felt betrayed by my wife. Like I had felt like, you it's almost like when you got married, it's like you promised me something. You know what I'm saying? You said you would have these goals, maintain these goals or whatever, and you didn't do that. You didn't keep your end of the deal. Me, on the other hand, I'm progressing in the military. I'm learning stuff. I'm gone to different places, gone to different training. I'm seen as a person who's capable among their peers and even by their superiors. But like I said, so I'm telling kind of both sides, right? Is I got the relationship with my wife, but I got the relationship with those who I work with and those friends and the betrayals. So, but how do you rekindle that, right? Because you even mentioned yourself, like you and your wife were separated, and there's time that goes into this, obviously, when it comes to the rekindling process. But how did you go about that? Because there's, I'm sure there's a lot to uncover within there, whether it's your personal relationship with your spouse or whether it's even with your soldiers and that broken relationship. But how do you rekindle those relationships?
Yeah. Do I have your permission to use kind of the example you gave with you and your wife as a little template here?
Yeah.
Okay. So the way you just described that's exactly what a teenage boy says, right? Damn. There's zero empathy in that. There's zero understanding. That's what like old George used to do, right? You're blaming your wife. Oh, she's not living up to her end of the deal, right? So this is where a lot of guys mishear me. They think that I'm blaming men. No, what I'm saying is you have all the power to change that you influence. You have all the power to change the outcomes of your family if you do it correctly. And the way that you do it correctly is like in this case, right? You had all these extra training and people around you forcing you to be better. Your wife didn't have that. So what are you going to do about it, man? Oh, she's not living up to her end of the deal. Okay. Well, what are you doing to change the situation? You going to blame her? Or are you going to actually help her? Right. And this was me. I was Mr. Blame. Right. So I acted like I'm all tough and I got all this stuff together and I'm this go-getter. I got out of the army, got the high paying job, all that kind of stuff. Right. Like I'm crushing it, man. Respect me, like that was kind of my attitude. But all the time I'm just blaming her. And it's really just victimhood. Oh, well, I'm not a good enough man because she, right? I'm not doing this good enough because she, right? It's a very elaborate form of victimhood. And I think a lot of guys fall into this place. And a lot of it too, maybe, if she's chipping at you or nagging you and all that kind of stuff, you're not having sex, those kinds of things. This is the really hard to swallow pill. It's probably in response to your behavior or the lack of it, right? And that's why in Elite Sentinel, we start with you, the man, first. She may be wrong on a lot. Absolutely. And we're going to get to a point where we start correcting that. Yes, men, you can correct your wife. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we'll get to that in this episode. But you have to earn the right first, right? You got to build leadership capital. And so that starts with understanding the situation, right? So in that example you gave, and I was the exact same way. I finally had to realize, like, well, my wife doesn't have the training I have. My wife doesn't have the experiences I have. She doesn't have this or that. How can I help her with it instead of blaming her about it, right? And it was like, duh. It sounds so obvious when you say it like that. But when you're in the midst of it, man, it's painful. It hurts. You're bitter. There's resentment. Like you're feeling the things, And that's why, again, the only way I got out of it wasn't like I just figured it out on my own. I surrounded myself with better men. I went and found men who have amazing marriages. And I was like, how are you guys doing it? Like, teach me the secrets. I just can't seem to figure it out, It was finally in my humility and my brokenness when I finally admitted I needed help that things started to improve, right? And it's not like overnight I got better at this, but we used to fight. If we had a fight, it would last a month. And then as we continued to improve and retrain our patterns, it would last a week, and then it lasted a day, and now it lasts an hour. And we just had a pretty bad fight actually very recently. And then we had a lot of makeup sex, right? That never used to happen. And this isn't like a brag. It's just to show you that as you grow and improve, you will both grow together. You'll both overcome things together, but it's in response to your leadership first, men. You have to take the first move, and it's not fair. She's an adult too. I hear you. But nothing changed for me in our marriage until George stopped blaming Whitney And George started taking ownership for George and surrounding myself with guys to be like, hey, bro, way too intense, dude. Chill out. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Nope. Hang on. Let's maybe say that a different way. Oh, you're right. Yeah. That's the only way out. So sorry, I'm not trying to like put you on the spot with your scenario there, but that same sentiment I hear over and over and over. And I get it because that was me. And I try to help men very quickly understand how just that little shift, that's kind of the thing that pushes the boulder down the hill and gets it rolling, right? That little piece there, she will feel the difference. And so I'll close with this too. Women's needs are different than men. And the thing they crave most is safety in your relationship, right? Financial, physical, all that. But the most important one is emotional or spiritual safety, connection with you. And so if your anger or your blaming or your critiquing or whatever is a constant threat to her, she's never feeling safe. So that's why she's closed up and walled off and locked in, because she's scared of you. And that's what I had to realize, was that the highest probability of my family getting hurt wasn't from outside sources or the world. It was George losing his own temper in his own home. And I was like, dang, that stung. But when I finally owned it, I could do something about it. And the better I've gotten at staying stoic and being empathetic, the better our family has grown in response.
Well, one thing I would say I relate to, or what I think what comes to mind for me is when the Bible talks about slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to anger. And I think a lot of men, what we do, we have this thing where the easiest emotion that we had growing up, whether we had a good childhood or a bad childhood, but the easiest emotion that we saw consistently throughout our life, what it tended to be was anger. So as we get older, we tend what we did or what we do is when we get to this point where we're uncomfortable, we don't know what's going on, we don't know how to solve a problem, we go to that innate, that feeling, that emotion that we're so used to leaning on or relying on, that has helped us in some ways get to where we are today, and which is anger. And so we're like, hey, we get angry. So then, but then you can't do that with your wife or with your kids.
Well, you can. You certainly can.
Don't recommend it, but
not gonna create the results you want.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I'm even learning right now is I can sit here and be, Drill Sergeant Wilcox all day at my house. But I can tell you right now, no one in my house is going to want to talk to me. No one in my house is going to want to respond to me. It's going to be like, it's like, and you're in, so you understand. It's like walking on eggshells around that one sergeant major, where you're just like, hey man, that dude is just, he's a ticking time bomb, and you don't know what's going to set him off. And so then the standards and expectations within your home become unachievable, unattainable, right? Your kids can never live up to these
and they learn to fear you instead of love you.
Yeah, that are constantly changing. So it's one of those things. But I also wanted to kind of bring up something that made me think of, what it made me think of was is the story of the beginning times of Adam and Eve, right? And we've all heard the story before, right? Or where the devil deceived Eve. But what the part I think where people stop reading is Adam was there the entire time. Adam was there the entire time, didn't say a single word, right? And when God comes back to the garden after they've eaten from the tree of good and evil, or knowledge of good,
the knowledge of good and evil,
right, and eaten from the tree, and God comes back and they've put leaves on themselves to clothe themselves, if you will.
Who does he ask first?
Yep. And who does he ask? He goes to Adam. But here's the biggest thing that I want people to pay attention to. And this is something that I learned in my Bible study yesterday that we were doing. And I feel I really liked hearing and want to share is, first and foremost, God punished everyone involved. God punished the devil. God punished Eve. God punished Adam, right? All three of them received their punishment. And then if you go to, it's Romans 5:12, I believe it is. In Romans, in Romans 5:12, the verse when it talks about is how we were all condemned, essentially condemned to sin by one man. And that one man, and what they're talking about is Adam. Now, we all know and understand Eve ate the fruit, right? She was the one who ate the fruit and got deceived and gave it to Adam, and Adam ate it. However, the Bible, when it talks about it, outlines it was the sin of one man, which was Adam. So it's important that we understand what the point I'm trying to drive here is leadership. And when it comes to leadership of your home, it comes to being in charge or being a man of your home. God knew it was Eve who ate the tree first, but he said, Adam, you were put in charge. I put you in charge. The first thing he says, right? And
this woman you gave me, right? He shifts blame.
Yeah, immediately shifts blame. Also, the great point right there is
the first sin. Literally, the first sin is the man shifting blame, right?
It was hey, it was her fault. She did it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the craziest thing. So it's something to think about. Like I said, I think the biggest thing here is when it comes to leadership is understanding that at the end of the day, you got to be accountable for yourself. And I think, man, it gets so hard because it's like I was mentioning before. And when it's this feeling of we always have to constantly be improving, but our wives or our significant others don't, and so that resentment and the bitterness come. So I'm saying that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just say if that is actually the case, you're missing some feedback here. There's still something else that you're not doing that is cutting her off. Because like, if you're really becoming the guy, right? Like 2.0 version of yourself, who's really leading with love and strength in all the right ways and all the right places, right? If you're really doing that, she is going to want to make you happy. She's going to want to please her husband because it feels great. This new version of you makes her feel really good. And when a woman feels good, she's going to act differently. It's just how it goes. Like it's not a flaw. It's the feminine feature, right? And most men miss this. But so if you think you're doing all the right things and she's still just like she's like digging her heels in, I assure you there's something else that you haven't really figured out yet. And again, this is where like a good, strong brotherhood will really help dissect that, where you can have really honest conversation about these types of things will help you really improve the situation. So I will kind of give that word of advice there, because I was the same way. I thought I had pulled all the levers, we'd fixed all the things, really for me to find out that all that stuff from the past we kind of just put some dirt over, we didn't actually heal it, and so we had to kind of make things worse before we made it better, right? And that, again, hard to swallow pill. It didn't feel fun to really have to wrestle with the fact that she really doesn't respect me because she still just sees me as that old guy. Okay, well, what can I do to change that? Not to like appease her, right? I'm still a man on a mission. So maybe this too will like define this really well. So it's called the 3 legs of leadership. And this falls under the king pillar, but I believe this is universal. It's not just for marriage. I believe this applies in the military, and applies in business, and applies peer-to-peer friendship. So the 3 legs of leadership are authority, responsibility, and compassion. And I learned this from a mentor of mine named John Michael Clark, just an incredible example of what real leadership is. So authority means you actually have the power to change the outcomes, right? In the military, you're a commander, you're basically judge, jury, and executioner. What you say, you can actually affect the outcomes, right? Now, should you just rule with an iron fist? Should you just ignore advice from everyone around you? Absolutely not. Like when I was a commander, I was commanding a combat engineer company. I was an artillery officer. I don't know how to do demo. So I literally turned to my subordinates and said, what do you recommend we do for the plan, right? It would be very foolish of me to ignore their recommendations. Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't mean you have to be like the boss, right? But it's just your word changes the outcomes, right? Responsibility is owning the outcomes. Okay. Even though I took their recommendation, if something goes wrong, it's on me, the commander, because I'm responsible for it. This is the best thing about the Army. When you're a commander or whatever role you're in, the first sentence of your duty description says, as the commander of this company, you are responsible for everything your company does or fails to do, period. Now apply that to family. If you are a husband and father to this family, you are responsible for everything your family does or fails to do, period. You're the CEO of this company. You are responsible for everything it does or fails to do, period. That is masculine leadership. You're responsible for the outcomes. Now, again, someone else may have been wrong, and you're going to take corrective action, but you don't shift the blame. You actually fix the outcomes for the next time down the line. So now let's apply that to marriage. Let's say my wife recommends we do something, and I'm like, hey, that actually sounds like a good plan, and it doesn't go right. I'm not going to go and be like, well, you told me, honey. No, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? We got this, babe. It's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll change this and this for the next time. Come here. I love you. And then the last one is compassion. And that's, you love your people a lot and they know it. You communicate it constantly. Now, where a lot of, especially Christian men today, find themselves is they're all the responsibility and all the compassion, and they have zero authority in their home. They're the family butler, not the family captain. And that is where I said, like, hey, you can correct your wife. When you start leading for real, your influence will correct your wife. And then eventually you earn the capital to start saying things like, hey, I'd appreciate if you didn't talk to me like that. You can ask me next time. What? You can say that to your wife? Yes, man, you surely can. I'm happy to teach you how, but that is actually something she wants from you. She wants to be corrected when she knows she's out of line, because it's a feminine test. She's seeing, is your resolve stronger than her bad behavior? Is your conviction stronger than her emotion? That's leadership. And when you pass that test, she starts to respect you more, and then she's more attracted to you, and on it goes. And this is stuff the church should teach young Christian men. Like, it's in the Bible. George didn't invent this. It's all right there. But we've been so like conditioned by feminism and all these other things that like, oh, never disagree with a woman. It's like, no, you can disagree and not be angry. You can disagree with love. You can hold a boundary or a standard and not be a jerk about it, right? There is both. And honestly, the best person who modeled that is Jesus, right? To the Pharisees, the hypocrites, he called them a brood of vipers, right? He held them very stringently. But with the wounded, the needy, the poor, he didn't be like, oh, you sinners, you're horrible people. He was like, he had compassion for them, and then said, go and sin no more, right? So we have the ultimate example. We're supposed to be the same thing in our families, but hopefully that kind of helps you see the dynamics at play there. But yeah,
absolutely. I think, and that's the thing, right? It's easy, like I said, it's easy for us as men to get to that default of, hey, I'm improving, she's not. And that's what I was saying is like, it's easy to get to that mindset. Yeah. And then I
felt trapped to it too.
Yeah. And then step back, and then having to take a step back or a few step back and go like, hold on, why is it that I'm improving and she isn't? Oh, okay, hold on. There is something that I'm not doing. And it's one of those things is whereas even as I get deeper into my faith, as I grow in my faith, as I start growing and realizing what it is that the Lord has planned for me and what that means, what that looks like, am I building? Am I involving my wife into that? Am I involving my kids in that? Am I welcoming them into that space and saying, okay, hey, I can't be the only one improving in the sense of my faith. You guys should be improving in your walk as well. And me as being called to the leader of my home and the pastor of my home, I need to make sure that I am pastoring to my family, pastoring to my kids, pastoring to my wife, and leading them up and bringing them up in the way that they should. And that's where that strong foundation comes from. So I think it's you said it perfectly. I think one of the things is it's the mental shift that a lot of some men are not prepared to take or don't realize until it's too late.
They're not equipped. Our entire society doesn't teach them.
We need change, right? And even like to what you said is the femininity of men that society has brought on to men today, especially is where it's like, hey, she's a woman, be careful, don't on eggshells, don't say that, don't want to upset her, don't want to do this. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, it's not, I don't say these things to upset you, but I say these things because I think we can come to a conclusion. However, we both have to be willing to want to come to this conclusion. But me as a man, me in that specific moment, if it's me and my wife, how am I going to get her to agree that we need to come to a conclusion, not just force down the wall and say, hey, we need to come to a freaking conclusion or else. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you're not beating her over the head with it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I did have the question. I was going to say, how do you correct your wife? Because I think when a lot of men hear that, the idea of correcting their spouse, one sounds scary, right? I'm not saying men are at their houses getting beat up.
No, but let's call spades a spade. I mean, most men are afraid of their wives. I was too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think it's a fear in the sense of like, I mean, I will say this. I do think it's a fear
It's
of
maybe fear of the emotion, like,
the
oh,
emotion,
she's
but
gonna have,
yeah,
feelings
yes.
about this or whatever. Yeah.
And
You don't want
as
to deal with it.
100%. You're like, I got work. What I think of is, when I was a platoon sergeant, I would be from 6 a.m. to 6 at night. I was Staff Sergeant Wilcox doing my
Yep.
thing and doing whatever I need to, leading people, doing all that, dealing with
Right.
chaos or whatever. I come home 7:30 sometimes, and the first thing is he getting nagged at, and then you're like, okay, all right. So I still have Staff Sergeant Wilcox hat on.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then next thing I know, I'm Staff Sergeant Wilcox, or again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm Drill Sergeant Wilcox to my family, and that doesn't help lead to growth. And so I think again, it's one of these things, is the stresses of life and not realizing how much it is actually destroying your family when you don't take that sip of reality, if you will, and be like, holy crap, what role am I playing, instead of playing the blame game? As you mentioned, I love it so much that you talk about that, is we are so easily ready to play the blame game and say, hey, well, she did this, she did that, she wouldn't do this, the kids wouldn't listen here, and then this person did this, and then this, and it's like, I hear you.
And they're all valid. They're all true. Right?
Yeah.
That's the hard thing, is it's all true, but it's not helpful. Right.
Right.
It's this very elaborate trap we basically build for ourselves. We imprison ourselves in all these true facts of all the blame. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get out of that. It's very hard to get out of that. When you finally do, though, you realize how fruitless that is, how much energy you wasted on that. And it's like, oh man, I've got bigger things to do than blame.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
but let's use your example. If you come home and she nags you right away, right? You've had a hard day at work. She just hits you with problems, and you're like, oh, geez, like, I don't have a minute here. So that's again where the correction isn't like, listen here, woman, that's not how it's gonna be, right? Like, okay, that's not gonna work either, because there's no empathy there. But it's more of a, hey, honey, I just got home. There's a couple ways you can do this. Like, hey, can I have just like 5 minutes to just go like decompress, get out of my uniform, get a glass of water, whatever, something. Or it can even be like, hey, honey, I'm your husband. Not one of the kids, or something. Like, can you reframe that to where it's a request, or something like that. So there's a lot of ways to take that, and guys, listen to this with wisdom, right? Every scenario is different, so you need to like understand the principle before you just apply it. And this is where, like, just listening to one podcast is not going to make you the master of this, but I want you to start planting the seeds to know what's possible. So like, it was, I think, just a week ago. The dates are getting a little fuzzy here, but about 1 week ago, maybe two, my wife came in and was like, why is this not put away? Put it away. Kind of said it in that tone to me. And I just calmly went in the kitchen and said, hey, honey, I'm your husband. Can you just ask me to put it away? And her reaction was like way over the top and like really aggressive. And it started getting close to like fight mode, and she kind of stormed off. But I remembered what time of the month it was. I'm like, you know what? Her emotions are kind of hijacking her right now. So I calmly went back up there and said, hey, honey, I'm trying to force a resolution here or anything like that. Dinner's ready. I'm happy to dish you up. And I also, remembered that it's this time and you're probably just feeling a lot right now, And she was like, I need a hug. And so then me just diffusing the situation, was I right to be like, hey, that tone is unacceptable? Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't acceptable the way she spoke to me, but the way I actually correct it isn't to like make her feel that, it's to like wrap her up, and help her calm back down. And I didn't need to explain to her why she was wrong. She was like, I'm sorry, you're right, I should have, like, and I'm not manipulating her either, right? This is me genuinely peeling the onion to like the root of the issue. And in that moment, she was just feeling a lot, and it just came out, right? She just kind of snapped. And so this is where it's a lot of things come together. That's how you actually get good at this. But most corrections, like what the way I say it is like, good leaders root out dysfunction at the earliest possible point, right? So the correction is like bumpers on the bowling alley, right? So like, it's just very gentle, kind of keeping it in lane. if you never correct anything and then it's like it's gotten so far out of line and then you're gonna like put your correction in, well, it's like giving everyone whiplash because you let it go for so long and now you're gonna make a correction. It's like, who are you, guy? Right? You haven't even, you see what I'm saying? It's like the standard hasn't been set. And so hardly ever does it need to be this firm, like angry type of presence. It's usually very like, hey honey, I'm your husband. I'd appreciate it if you didn't talk to me like that. You know, that's kind of the energy we want to give off here. It's kind of happy-go-lucky, joyful swagger. You know, you're kind of telling her without telling her that like your emotions don't get to throw me off course. I'm not going to fall into like arguing with you just because you're not feeling good, right? And then that actually makes her feel safe. Over time, she recognizes that she can't manipulate you with emotion, and that makes her feel really safe because she's like, oh my gosh, okay, he can handle it. Thank God my husband can handle me. You know, that makes her feel good. And it also is the way women think about those things is if you can't handle that, then what else can't you handle? Right. She just thought of the 200 other things that you can't handle. So this is why this stuff really snowballs. It either goes positive or negative very quickly because her mind works differently than yours. And so that lack of understanding from a masculine perspective can be pretty disastrous because you go into problem solver mode like a man, and that's not what she needs. So anyway, I hope that gives a little bit of light on how to do that, but
because I think
use caution and wisdom. And the first thing I would advise all men who are listening to this is just being sure that you're truly growing yourself. You're truly seeking accountability, making a lot of effort to actually become a better man. That earns you more of a right to actually correct her too and kind of hold her accountable. But again, you're trying to restore connection, not like punish her. If you do that, it's going to just tear your marriage to pieces. So
I think a lot of that will lead to time, and because like you said, you're not going to finish watching this podcast and then tell your wife you're like, hey, I'm your husband. You're not going to talk to me that way, right? You're not going to be able to do it because there are other things that go into it that are a part of it, I believe, right? That help actually get to that desired end state that you want, versus just saying like, well, I'm your husband, you're not going to talk to me like that way. Because even in the situation between you and your wife, right? I think what a lot of people would end up doing is even after going upstairs and saying, or going to the room saying, hey, look, I got dinner ready, whatever the case might be, and getting not getting that response that you still wanted. A lot of men would just flip that switch and say, well, look, I tried it your way. It didn't freaking work. I'm going right back to my way, and boom, boom, boom. But honestly, to hear like that it isn't effective, and there's an effective way to do it. And the patience is one of the biggest things as men that we can learn, is because, man, like that the resolution that you got to, I'm not gonna be honest. You tell me the story. It really surprised me. Not because I know you or your wife, but just because the sense of I've been in that moment before where it's like, okay, hey, I'm really trying to help kind of solve it. And then you try to go over and you're still coming at my neck. And, so I think a lot of men, I hear that and I feel that. And I think, it's an effective method, guys. I want y'all to go to his website. It's going to be in the description because holy crap. I've met a lot of people before who have a coaching program, who talk about doing coaching, and they have their pillars. They have some of these things drawn out, mapped out on what that looks like. But to hear some of it, what you're talking about, and put it into play and put in practice, and how you have, and it's not even like you have a response ready to what I was saying, but it was, hey, I've dealt with this before. I understand how to deal with this. You're like, boom, hey, this is what I was talking about. This is what I mean. I think a lot of people, they respect that, and they need that, right? Because what you end up meeting on this online sphere of people of who say they're coaches and they want to get into coaching, myself included, is hey, it's just there to make a buck, right? I'm here to make a buck, get a few clients, and if I charge each client $250, that's a decent little money for I got 5 clients and it's a 10-week program, whatever, like great. I'm freaking living life right now on money, and I'm not really helping people, but I'm cashing in dough and I'm feeling really good about myself. And I think when it comes to coaching, when it comes to mentoring, just in the Army, it's at the end of the day, it's about being effective, and it's about people actually getting something out of value out of it versus you just sitting there saying like, well, look how much money I got from being able to sell these people that I could coach them, when really I don't have anything to give them other than just saying, hey, that was stupid, do better next time,
Exactly.
So
Yeah, unfortunately there's a lot of people like that out there.
Yeah.
There are.
No. Oh yeah. It's an overset. I don't say this to be
Because
mean,
people
but
think it's easy, right? And so
yeah,
they think,
yeah.
I mean, it's like anything. Everyone's looking for like, oh, monthly recurring revenue and this, everyone's looking for the easy way out. I got it. And so a lot of those people are attracted to this because it does seem easy. I can work from home and do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get it. But why we are different is, one, everyone, me and my instructors who run it together with me, we've all done the program, right? Well, I built it and they did it with me to start.
Yeah.
And then, we're all members basically, right? And like I said, I'm the first client. So everything we're teaching you is the stuff that I needed to fix my life. And, the results speak for themselves now, not because I'm some awesome dude. It's just this stuff works for men, period, because it's what men should be doing. And when you do it, the results follow. And we don't teach you tactics. I mean, we'll give you some, but we're teaching you mastery over the concepts so that you can actually apply them day to day without me. You're going to come to our program and graduate and move on and move out and not have to run to George every week and be like, what do I do? No, I'm going to teach you so that you never need me again. I want to build you up so that you're truly independent and you have wisdom with these concepts and this, knowledge so that you can apply them effectively in the different aspects of your life. And that's what we do. And, this conversation we're having tonight is very similar to kind of what we do week in and week out with the men in our program of coaching in real time about how to talk to your wife or how to do this or how to handle your business better. Whatever the thing is, we're applying these principles to each scenario and working together on it. And that's really the secret sauce is, I know a lot of stuff. I've learned a lot. I've put a lot of effort into this to be very good at what I know, but I'm just one guy. And when you do it with this whole group of men, you're getting 20 perspectives. You're getting 20 guys who are in your corner, advising you, helping you, coaching you, holding you accountable. That is super powerful. That just launches you like a rocket to become this better man. So my favorite part of it is at the end of every 12-week cycle is just seeing the guys recognize who they've become versus who they were at the start. And they're like, man, I don't even remember who that guy was. And I'm like, congratulations, bro. Welcome to the club. So that's our mission, is to build you up to be independent. It's essentially train the trainer from the military. I'm trying to train you so that you can go and take this and be a force multiplier in your community. That's really all it is. So that's awesome. Ideally, I would love to be at a point where we have been so effective at training men in this country that I don't have to have a men's training program anymore because fathers are just training their sons, right? Yeah. And I'll go do like business consulting, So that would be the dream, that because I want this to make a generational impact. I think this is how I'm going to serve, the country far greater than what I do in uniform part-time is this. This is changing families, it's changing our communities. And I think it makes a stronger country overall. And so that's what I would love to see, is that this is just one of the many things that's happening to kind of course correct for us. So sorry to kind of jump in there, but I saw where you're going with it. And this for me was a calling. It wasn't like, oh, I can just do this business. I felt God call me to it. I felt him say to me, this isn't the path I have for you with what I was doing before with work. And so I took a lot of time thinking about it. What can I do, Lord? I want to follow you. I want to actually put my skills to use for your work, not my own. And after a lot of prayer and a lot of counsel from very good men that I respect, then it was like, hey, you should do this, right? And each step of the way, things have fallen in place. I'm not that good, a lot of things have fallen in place for me, right? Just the random people I've met who know someone who helps me with this or that. And, I can't take credit for any of that. And that's why we're doing what we're doing, is because it's not about me. It's not about any of my instructors. It's about each man who comes through, gaining it, owning it, being able to move on and move out and multiply it.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And like I said, I think there's a lot of programs out there that claim to do what you provide, what you provide, and to have the insight that you have, or that you get. But a lot of them, truthfully, are, again, it's a money making scheme. And I 2 points here is one, you mentioned in the beginning, like we have these two extremes. You have Andrew Tate extreme, and then you have the very passive man extreme, right? And the military is great at this. Is like from one extreme to the other is never in the middle. But I think as a society, as men as a whole, we are that. We tend to do that where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I have to either be an Andrew Tate or I have to be this weak man that gets walked all over. And it's like, no, actually, you can be in the middle, right?
Right.
You can balance and encompass some of and as crazy as this sounds, I know it's going to be controversial if I be saying this, but you can encompass some of the values and things that Tate believes and puts out into the world, and you can encompass some of these things that the men who are walked all over, the weaker men, if you will, the men who are tend to be more feminine and not value themselves are treated. You can balance them both and meet in the middle and say, cool, this is where I need to be. This is where I should be as a man as a whole. Right. I think they're just one part of the extreme, as you mentioned, is one is more extreme than the other. And then my final point here is I think it's amazing to have these conversations because think about how this conversation started, and it was, how do you define masculinity? And to get to where we are now, and to hear what your program is about, to hear your how you problem solve and how within your own relationship, and to have the value of your relationship, to be able to hear like, oh, there are still things that he's going through. His life is not just a happy-go-lucky all the time, and because he has this program and he doesn't ever run into problems ever again. It's genuine, and it makes people realize, okay, this is real life. There's still real life occurring.
Oh yeah, man.
And it doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect afterwards, but I'm going to have the tools and the mechanisms to help improve not only my relationship with my wife, but the relationship that I make with other people. The final thing I promise is iron sharpens iron. It's one of those things, and it's about those people. And the biggest thing that I think from when I was listening to you is the people. It's about the people you build this thing with, right? Whatever you're building, it's about who you build it with and who you surround yourself with. Iron sharpens iron, and it's such a crazy thing to hear. And that's all I was thinking about this entire time, is because I'm like, man, you surround yourself with men who are, if you in some ways better than you, or superior to you because they've more wisdom and all that case, or and you even have men who are, you're like, they're not better than me. They're kind of, it's not necessarily a comparison mechanism, but what it is you guys are helping each other. You guys are helping each other grow, and that's what it's all about, and I love it so much. But that's all we got. Before we go, George, any last piece of advice that you got for the audience before we get off of here?
Yeah, guys, the best time to level up was yesterday. The next best time is right now. And the most arrogant assumption a man can make is that he has more time. You don't. Tomorrow is not promised. So if anything I said is sticking with you, maybe I'm not your guy. If you don't want to work with me, that's fine. But you need to go take this seriously. The best possible thing you can do for your family is to become a better man. Invest in your own growth, your leadership, your ability to truly do the things I described in this episode. That will pay generational dividends over and over, and it will transform not just your life, your children's lives, and everyone who knows you. And it's absolutely worth the effort. So, I take this very seriously because I almost threw it all away. I was almost another statistic that messed it up, and maybe you come from a tough background. You get to be the one to change it. You get to be the one that starts that new story for your family name. You get to delete that past and set a new path forward for your family. And that's an incredible gift. It's not easy, but it is an incredible opportunity for you. And so I hope that inspires you. And if you need any help or anything, just feel free to reach out and DM me, and we'll get you plugged into the right place.
Hey guys, all of his stuff will be in the description below, so you can check it out. I encourage you to check him out. I really do. It's freaking awesome stuff. And I hope when you see this, that you see, even when you go on Instagram and YouTube, wherever it is, you're like, oh well, it just kind of seems like a traditional coaching thing. I hope this conversation adds value to understand really that there's a lot more to it than just what you see at face value. So hey, that's all I got. Hey George, thanks for coming on. And guys, as usual, being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. That's all I got. Mediocre Dads out.